Hey, hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is September 5th, which on this day, back in 1927, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit debuted in Trolley Troubles. Does anyone on here, anyone think that they can know what Oswald's current name is? Well, maybe. Also, today is Cheese Pizza Day. So the Buffalonians that are in the house here today, go to Lenovo and enjoy yourself a cheese pizza slice. So today's briefing, we're going to be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. My name is Keith Wojcicki, Global Head of Threat Intelligence. This week, we're joined by Senior Vice President George Glass, Vice President Dave Truman, Vice President Ryan Hicks, Vice President Sarah Becker, all from our Cyber Threat Intel team. We're going to be covering some new trends. One that we are a little bit disappointed in. George is going to have a hard time going through this. If anyone can give us some support, we'd appreciate it. Talking about QAKBOT and maybe the demise, but we think it's going to rise again. Second, Ryan's going to go through some VMware, Barracuda with Ryan, and then Maldocs, Smuggled in from PDF. Dave's going to review that. And then we're going to round it up with the Lockbit Builder from Sarah. From there, I'm going to turn over to George.
Thank you very much, Keith. Yes, it's with somewhat mixed feelings that I report the disruption of QAKBOT. Obviously, it's fantastic when enforcement get to take down such a significant botnet, but I'm going to have to find something to talk about and obsess over. So yeah, let's get into it. On or around August the 25th, the US Justice Department announced a multinational operation involving actions from US, France, Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, Romania, Latvia, law enforcement agencies, and private sector to disrupt the botnet and malware known as QAKBOT and take down its infrastructure. Using the access, which I'll go into in a little bit, the FBI was able to delete the QAKBOT payload from victim computers after taking control of some of the command and control servers. This year, at Kroll, we detected a pretty significant increase in QAKBOT infections throughout 2023. We noticed the increase in spam all up until June 22nd. And that's when we think that the QAKBOT operators went on what they typically have as a sort of a summer break. And during that time, Operation Duck Hunt was put into effect. And using some of the special powers that the FBI have, they identified over 700,000 infected computers worldwide when they got access to those command and control servers. And so this takedown represents a pretty significant disruption to the initial access broker market. Now, there's a couple of things that I'm just going to quickly run through just for understanding. QAKBOT ran 3 tiers of command and control infrastructure. You have on the screen here is a really good resource by the CISA. On the left-hand side there, you can see all of the infected QAKBOT victims. And some of those victims were told to download and install what is called the Supernode module. And that basically turns the first tier of C2 infrastructure into these connected botnet nodes. Then upstream proxies, also known as the tier 2 infrastructure, are typically more static, and that allows proxy traffic to make it up to the command and control tier or the panel tier, which is where the actual operators execute their commands from. So the FBI were able to take out tier 1 and tier 2 nodes and reroute command and control traffic to their controlled server. And then from there, they were able to tell the infected bots to download and install the vaccine to the botnet, essentially removing it from the host. So yeah, very significant operation. I know that there's been lots of whether QAKBOT will return. Well, although the FBI were able to seize some of the administrator machines, I don't know exactly how that happened. There have been no arrests made. So the gang behind QAKBOT remains at large. They maintain control of their source code, and so it's absolutely possible that they could come back. Final note from me, data of the stolen emails that were gathered from the infected machines and the command and control server have been shared with services such as Have I Been Pwned, Dutch Law Enforcement, and Spam House. And those services are actively contacting users whose emails either appeared as a victim or were harvested as part of some sort of third-party breach. So yeah, more news on that as we have it, but for now, it looks like QAKBOT is gone. Back over to you, Keith.
Oh, sorry. For some reason, my mic wasn't working. My apologies. I was a little depressed about QuackBot, but then again, very happy it was disrupted. But I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to talk about VMware and Barracuda.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, everyone. So yeah, just to highlight a few vulnerabilities for this week. The first of which is an out-of-band that we pushed out last week, and that's for VMware Aria operations for networks. As you see on the left-hand side there, the CV number 2023 34039 has a 9.8, which is critical CVSS score. It's not reported exploited in the wild. However, a proof of concept was posted online just a few days ago. I think it was Sunday. So really expecting exploitation to kind of rear its head quite soon. And the products impacted, you see a list of the versions on the left there, again for Aria operations for networks. So if exploited, the vulnerability basically essentially enables an actor with network access to the appliance to bypass SSH authentication, gaining access to the command line, and that's due to a lack of unique cryptographic key generation in the product. A successful exploitation can be used to a few things. Firstly, change configuration, potentially run sysctl commands, but also write files onto the system. And that can really ultimately allow a malicious actor to execute operating system commands on the appliance as root. Really, as with most out-of-bands, the recommendation updating to the latest release for the specific version of the product that is vulnerable, and the link for that was in the out-of-band that we pushed out, but also can be seeked out through the VMware advisory for the vulnerability itself. So do look at that if you are running any of these vulnerable products. So secondly is the Barracuda vulnerability update. So we initially kind of pushed out a few articles in the weekly back in June. So the update for this week is the FBI have released a flash advisory based on their investigations into the Barracuda email security gateway vulnerability, and that is 2868 CV number. Originally released as a 0-day back in June. The advisory, which the FBI pushed out, stated that that nation-state actors have exploited the vulnerability. Essentially, they're tracking quite a large campaign against the CVE, and they've been using it to deploy further payloads that enabled persistent access, email scanning, credential harvesting, and data exfiltration. And they stated that following access, the threat actors targeted very specific data, and in some cases used the initial access that they gained as an entry point to the rest of the network, but also to send emails to other victim appliances. And although a number wasn't stated, the FBI noted that a significant number of Barracuda ESG appliances were exploited, so fairly wide scale. And there have also been recent links by CISA to C-Spy, Submarine, and Whirlpool malware families being used by threat actors during campaigns involving this exploitation. So a lot of reporting in July and then recently at the end of August surrounding this CVE. And although Barracuda did release an initial patch and advisory, the FBI stated that the patch was ineffective in stopping exploitation, and it continues to observe intrusions. So they strongly advise, which is the wording in their advisory, that all ESG appliances to be isolated and replaced, and all networks scanned for connections to the list of indicators that they provided in their flash advisory. We've also added a recommendation here to consider alternative email security appliances, including cloud-based service providers, if organizations are indeed running any of the affected appliances for this CV. And that's it for me. I'll hand back to Keith.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to turn it over to Dave to talk about Maldocs. Dave?
Thank you. JP CERT's Coordination Center released an article covering a new method of hiding malicious Word documents. The technique hides a Word document containing a malicious macro inside a PDF file. This is accomplished by saving the malicious document as a single file web page via the Save As dialog. The resulting file becomes a MIME encapsulation of HTML documents file, abbreviated to MHT. Then, by copying a chunk from the beginning of a PDF and appending the HTML document to it, a file readable by Word but detectable as a PDF by a subset of tools is created. The resulting file can bypass detections by tools that detect it as a PDF, then proceed to look only for the techniques or signatures associated with PDFs. PDF ID was an example used by JP CERT where the malicious macro was not detected. However, when we looked for examples in BioTotal, we found that the file resulted in detections in multiple AV engines. Also, tools such as EDR, which look for behavior such as abnormal network connections, or processes spawning from applications such as Word, are likely to still detect that behavior. To test Word's default protections, we created our own Word macro imbued PDF file. Word held up well in our testing. The document required user interaction to enable the running of the macros, and perhaps more importantly, the malicious PDF Word hybrid file, when downloaded from the internet, would be outright blocked from running the macros unless the mark of the web was manually removed, meaning this technique does not bypass Word's default policy of blocking internet-sourced macros, a change they made earlier this year. However, if an organization has decided to overwrite Microsoft's default policy with their own, this protection might not be in place. We recommend the use of EDR to protect endpoints and that the Microsoft default of totally blocking an internet-sourced macro document is in place. And as always, maintaining defense in depth can help compensate for the failure of one technology by providing an alternate means of protection. Thank you. Keith?
Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, who's going to talk about Lockbit Builder. Sarah?
Thank you, Keith. Lockbit is one of the top ransomware as a service operations. They recently released their latest version, which is also known as Lockbit Black, and it has since been deployed in major campaigns. Last September, there was a developer who leaked 2 versions of the builder code. This was allowing cybercriminals to utilize this code for their tools for their own needs. Researchers have seen a rise in this builder being utilized by any of these threat actors obtaining this. Once researchers analyzed 396 observed Lockbit builder samples in the wild, they realized that of the 396, 77 did not identify as Lockbit, or they also did not have the same kind of contact information that's usually found within ransom notes. So according to researchers, most Lockbit adopters targeted local disks or network shares. This is enabling the kill service, kill process, kill defender, delete logs, and self-destruct parameters in the malware. Most did not enable the system shutdown parameter, and very few utilize communications with a command and control server. So cyber criminals that are utilizing this malware, they've only made minor adjustments to it. This is assuming that they needed to use the malware in an urgent matter or the threat actors were just being lazy. That's it for me for the Lockbit Builder. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for everyone today. And just to kind of round up the beginning, the cartoon character Oswald the Lucky Rabbit debuted in Trolley Troubles, which was later, which actually inspired a mouse named Mickey. When Walt Disney Universal Picture, they parted ways. So Mickey Mouse came from Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. I know everyone was just waiting for that. So anyway, so I just wanted to say thank you very much. I appreciate the time, taking the time to tune in to Kroll's weekly threat intelligence briefing. We hope you found the session informative. Enjoy the rest of the day and make sure you tune into next week. Thank you.